The night was eventful. There were 3 silhouettes standing at the Tower of London's highest point. Though they met after dark, they had the aid of the moon to bathe them in light. It was an honor to receive such an earnest invitation from you.
Well, I was certain you'd accept it. Where's Emily, Lupin?
Lupin returned Watson's urgency and anger with a smile. Fear not. She is somewhere in this very tower, and she is unharmed.
Then you have no intention of telling us her precise location.
Whether I choose to be more precise is entirely up to you. I wish to duel you, Monsieur Holmes. One-on-one, of course, so I need you to keep your assistant on a lead.
What? You aren't going to listen to this, are you? Very well. Stay out of this, Watson. Holmes!
I'm pleased we could come to an agreement. For the terms, if you win, I will return her to you. If I win, however, I hope I don't need to spell my desires to you.
All I need to know is that I'll be taking her back.
Your face is wonderful right now. Strong, determined. So how do you like chess?
I have no strong feelings one way or the other, but I've never lost a game.
What a coincidence! I quite like it, and I, too, have never lost. He appeared rather giddy at the prospect of a competitive match, indicating in the direction of a table and 2 chairs near to them. Then may we settle this in a way where no one else can interfere? Atop the table was a chessboard. Its condition was so pristine that both the black and white squares each seemed to reflect some light from the moon.
You want to decide this with a game of chess? You're to be our witness, Watson. He wants to settle this in a match of skill, where luck is to have no part in the outcome. If that's what you want.
Oh, dang. Oh, what an awesome picture. White versus black. Go. They took the seats positioned opposite of one another. Still, settling this with a standard game of chess strikes me as a bit dull. The seated Lupin crossed his legs and pretended to be deep in thought for a few moments, though this was only to heighten the drama. He knew precisely what he was going to propose. I know. Pay attention now, you'll like this information. Each of these white pieces has a location written within. Emily is in one of them. If you feel you can afford to search for her during the game, be my guest. Just know that the only way to find her is to investigate directly. And you're to abide by the rules of chess when taking them. You're a gentleman, so it's only right you play a gentleman's game. Lupin plucked a white piece and waggled it in the air to encourage Holmes.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thus the duel was to begin.
Holmes! She wasn't at the middle tower's first floor written in the pawn. She wasn't at the Waterloo Barracks in the night either.
You've done spectacular work taking my pieces, Monsieur Holmes, but remember that it means nothing if you lose the match. Lupin moved his bishop in an elegant stroke. The winner isn't determined by who whittles down the most of the enemy's numbers. It is determined by who claims victory over the opponent's king. Didn't you say you've never lost?
I know the rules.
Lupin took one of Holmes's black knights.
He's panicking. I'm sure of it. We need to win, but we can only find her by playing the game wrong. There has to be more to this. What can I do to give him the upper hand?
But there was nothing. Watson could only wait and watch their battle. Emily's got to get herself out of there and be like, you don't gotta find me no more. I'm here. Just beat his butt. At the time, neither side was any closer to winning than the other. Yet, as the duel went on, Holmes could feel himself being lulled into a contraption from which there was no escape. With every turn, he had fewer opportunities to steal Lupin's pieces.
Even if Holmes does win, that doesn't guarantee we'll find Emily. It's been a fair game, but win or lose, Lupin still has some advantage. What can we do to turn the game to our favor?
Watson glanced with a sweating brow to Holmes, whose nerves grew thinner with every decision.
It's your turn, Lupin.
The bitterness of which he said this was nearly palpable. Yeah! Do it, girl! Good job! I'm so proud of you! Holmes! Watson!
Miss Whiteley. We thought you'd been kidnapped by Lupin!
Good evening, Emily. Such impatience! Could you not content yourself to wait for my return? Oh, but I did have a feeling you wouldn't be able to live without me for much longer. I live and breathe perfectly well on my own, thank you.
What happened to you? Your arms and legs are covered in scrapes and scratches.
I suppose. It was quite the adventure to make it here, but it's not as bad as it looks. The hardest part was convincing the guard to let me through the front entrance, really. After securing them so I wouldn't fall, I hung the bed sheets from the window and used them as a rope to climb down. Once I landed, I rushed to the Tower of London straight away. Okay, I was thinking the curtains, because those curtains looked really long, but they are kind of flimsy, so good call on the bed sheets, girl. I noticed Westminster Abbey was visible and used it as a guide, following the Thames until I reached the tower. Oh, I was covered in dirt by the end of it. My dress became an awful mess. And my hair. I couldn't imagine the state my hair was in now. I never dared to look when along the river. The journey, coupled with the urgency in which I moved, had been taxing on my legs. I would have given anything to rest at any point, but I didn't. I was here. Mon Dieu. You escaped that room and came here on your own. Truly, you are... Holmes! Lupin will never turn his back on a queen! So don't let him beat you!
Ah, now I understand. I don't need you to tell me that, Miss Whiteley. I would never dream of losing. I'll admit, your chivalry is admirable. Your actions prove that you live in accordance with what you perceive to be beautiful.
How very strange to be complimented by you. Not that you're wrong. So, your point?
You always leave a queen in place of the treasure you've stolen. For you, a queen is a symbol. A symbol for you, and a symbol of the aesthetic by which you live. I respect your sense of beauty, which is why I will accept it and use it to my benefit.
Oh dang, get him, boy.
For this, my good man, is simply not a duel I can afford to lose.
I've never seen that spark in his eyes before. He's always focused when working on a case, but there's something more to this. As quiet as it is, the air feels too tense for words. You mustn't lose, Holmes. It was a black and white affair. Holmes at one end, Lupin at his, and the game continued uninterrupted. It only ended after what felt like an eternity.
Checkmate.
Holmes's black queen had Lupin's white king in its sights. Nice. Well played, Monsieur Holmes. Though defeated, Lupin wore a very pleased grin, its contours illuminated further by the blanching moon. I take pride in the way I fight, you know. She remained to the very end. I have no regrets. Lupin gathered the White Queen on the board into his palm. I never want to lose sight of what is truly important to me in a duel. If that leads to my loss, then so be it. Ah, and here, a fun tidbit for you regarding Colonel Moran. He plans to enter a contract with a nobleman of great celebrity and wealth in the near future. There is no guarantee, but perhaps catching him in the act will prove your innocence. Madame Front's killer should be in his company as well. Tempting, no?
And where does that leave you? You're now guilty of leaking confidential information.
Have you forgotten who I am? Above spellbound, above all else, I am a gentleman thief, a man who dazzles in the sun and leaves naught but magnificence in his wake. I live my life my way, and God help anyone who would try to stop me. Speaking of which, my congratulations on finding a similar passion for something. Lupin tossed an object in Holmes's direction. He caught it with ease midair.
What's this? A black knight?
Victory is yours today, but I would never turn down a rematch with you, Monsieur Holmes. What shall we wager then? Ah, Emily's heart will do. Pardon? You can't decide that! Until then, I expect you to remain worth my while to defeat, both as her knight and as a detective.
I don't need you to tell me.
As for you, Emily, when next we meet, I will pursue you with all the man I am. Promise to wait for me.
I promise, Boo. I look forward to it.
I mean, I'll run in the other direction. Baka. He never responded or even gave a proper farewell. He simply walked to the edge of the rooftop, jumped, and disappeared into the well of darkness.
Every word he spouts gives me heartburn.
Poor Watson.
How are you, Emily? You look like you've been put through a terrible ordeal.
Much better. They're only little scratches, so it's nothing particularly painful.
That's good. I'll go fetch Pendleton then, since he's waiting outside the tower. He was very worried about you, you know. We'd best have you tell him you're all right sooner than later.
Watson made his way down the stairs. What a bro, though. Gave the two lovebirds a moment to kind of reconnect. Best wingman. And then there were two. Me and Holmes. He was gazing out the way Lupin had left the scene, and I could only watch him. The silence grew unbearable. I so badly wanted to speak. You were spectacular, Holmes! All it took was a tiny hint for you to turn the match around and win.
I suppose.
What was I doing? That wasn't what I wanted to say to him. But in lieu of nonsense, what could I say? Forgive me for worrying you? I know I've been a burden to you. Was he feeling disappointed in me? Angry with me? I tried to help him, but I failed. I failed again and again and again, and such a truth was heavy on my heart. Girl, you were spectacular. You. Why was it so difficult to speak? Holmes? He didn't answer, which terrified me that much more. Are you all right, Holmes? Have you taken ill? Again, no answer. I reached out towards him with caution.
Why are you always like this?
His sudden outburst made me freeze to the spot. I could not touch him, but he drew closer to me instead, gripping both my shoulders. He did so with such strength that I could only flinch.
You are a hopeless fool. How can you worry about someone else after all you've been through? Do you have any idea how afraid I was?
His eyes were so firmly fixed on me that I didn't know what to do. He sounded angry, but far more than that, his words conveyed just how concerned he had been for me. He looked at me like he would go pale if I were gone again. He held my shoulders like I would blow away with the wind. His intent was pure. Beyond doubt, he was terrified of losing me. And as that realization came, I could feel a certain warmth return to me. A happiness I didn't know I could feel. I should say something. I need to say something to him. I'm so sorry. I'd found my voice. As the words left my lips, my eyes began to well to the point where my vision blurred. I'm so sorry for worrying you. I'm truly, truly sorry. It was difficult to see, but his expression was so suddenly frantic that it only then dawned on me what was happening. It had been a long time since I last cried in front of someone. Aww. But after seeing his face, I couldn't suppress the tears.
Are you crying?
No, I'm not. I'm not unhappy or sad. The night brought forth a grim reality to me. I was an anchor chained to his legs, a weight beyond physical measure. A part of him had to hate me for it. I wanted to know, but at the same time, knowing meant I could no longer stay with him. Every insecurity that bubbled in my mind was quelled by seeing him like this. He was angrier than I'd ever seen him, and so afraid he couldn't control it. All because of me. It made me happier than I could put into words. The more I tried to stop crying, the harder it became to breathe, so I only cried some more. I'm just so happy and relieved that
Miss Whiteley.
Oh, yay! A hug! Yes! Oh.
You don't need to say anything right now.
The way he spoke was quiet and a comfort. His grip loosened. I could feel his one hand trickle from my shoulder to the back of my head. My hair must have been filthy to the touch. I must stink. If it was, he didn't act like it. His fingers weaved through with a delicacy that intended to only console me. He then drew me close to him. The consideration Holmes showed could be felt in how he pulled me in. There was hesitation from worry and willingness from desire, and together it made even the air around us feel soft. This is so warm. Being in his arms felt like a dream. I still cried, but he made me feel calmer for doing so.
I'm so glad you're safe.
His voice was right next to my ear. I closed my eyes, the better to hear that sweet voice, and the better to feel the way his arms wrapped around me. All the better to see you with, my dear. I didn't have to see to know it. I was safe. And being this safe, I could finally stop crying. He had a lot of emotions. A lot of stuff happened. It's understandable. Thank you, Holmes.
Miss Whiteley?
I couldn't be certain whether I had even managed to properly say it to him. All I knew was that I could feel my consciousness gradually slipping from me in his warmth. And then I fell asleep. Poor Holmes. He hugs the girl, she falls asleep on him. Oh, amazing. Colonel Morin's Revenge. Alright, next episode. There was a lapse in time that I could not remember, for I did not dream. Blackness, and then the faint twittering of birds. I opened my eyes to their song. Hello.
You've finally woken up. A pleasant morning to you, my lady.
I cannot be sure, but certainly a large amount of time must have passed. When I saw Pendleton, there was a distinct feeling that it had been too long since we last conversed. Or it may have been his features, which were still perfect even when graced by fatigue. Pendleton, have you been at my side all this time?
Regrettably not. I simply thought it was about time for you to wake and came to check on you.
I slowly sat upright on the bed. As the haze from sleep that stifled the mind began to lift, the events of before fell into an organized timeline. Disorientation left me, and with its loss was the conclusion that the match between Lupin and Holmes could not have possibly been more than a day ago after all. Forgive me for all the worry I caused you yesterday.
And worry I did. But you're here now, and I'm glad you are well. After your collapse, Holmes carried you all the way here to ensure your safety.
Aww. All the way? Dang. I remember. I was so at ease in his arms that I was lulled to sleep. What a terribly unladylike thing to do, even if I rather enjoyed it. My face and heart gained a sudden pulse of warmth upon the thought. I still cannot believe Holmes is the kind of man who would embrace me so. And then to carry me in his arms? Goodness. Goodness indeed. Pendleton, when you say he carried me, how do you mean?
He did as one would carry something truly precious to them. With delicacy, my lady.
Oh. That only served to make my heart race with a greater intensity. Yeah. Pendleton, apparently holding no desire to tease me on the issue, then reached into his pocket and presented a piece of paper.
He handed this to me after entrusting you to me incidentally.
Is it for me, then? I immediately recognized the neat handwriting as Holmes's and read it aloud.
I intend to take a leave of absence from the Academy. In that time, I would prefer you live as you always have. Please, refrain from associating yourself with me.
What is this?
He also advised that you take expert caution of your surroundings and allow me to guard you.
He did?
He did. I was to pass along the message to you once you were awake.
Oh, man. That 180 in feelings, though. Yike. Yike. The rapidness in my chest changed from pleasant to piercing. At first dull, and yet there was an underlying pain I could not make sense of. How could he tell me to stay away from him? He would say this after how kind he was? How close we were? This can't be true!
Your face tells me that you don't want to accept this. Be that as it may, I do hope you will try to understand his state of mind when writing this letter. This was no easy decision on his part to make.
I understand that he doesn't want to put me in danger. But Holmes cannot resist a case, and I wish to do what I can to help. And there's so much I dearly wish to discuss with him.
Well, my lady, if you'll excuse me, I must prepare your breakfast.
Holmes has done so much to help me since we met. I only wish I could do the same, to be his support rather than a hindrance. While swimming in dampening thoughts, I noticed something on the table next to the bed. I forgot to give his gloves back. Why did he have to give them to me? His fingers must have been absolutely frozen in that weather, but he endured without complaint just for me. Why did he do something so kind as if it meant nothing? My hands were shaking. My vision blurred again. What is the matter with me? I've never cried like such a child before. Wonder if Holmes is off fighting alone again. Is there really nothing I can do? At all? A single teardrop fell atop the gloves. Then another, and another. I wanted to stop. How I wanted to stop! I was a bigger girl than this, but I couldn't control the urge. I cried until it erupted into an awful, ugly wail. Don't worry, girl. I think we've all been there. The birds, meanwhile, continued their blissful song. Holmes was preoccupied. There was nothing exciting for a kept man to do on the surface, but he still found something of note, and it became such an intriguing something that it grabbed his full attention. This was how he came to spend the day, lounging in his armchair, the Black Knight in hand.
Is that the one from Lupin? It is. The man was ever so gracious to stuff a note full of information inside.
To prove it, Holmes showed Watson its bottom, which was indeed hollow. He then proceeded to read the contents of the note in a dull, knowing tone.
Baron Swaling's family were initially very influential figures in the city of Liverpool. 2 generations ago, however, they moved to London, and the current Baron's father established a banking company along Leadenhall Street. He is now head of the bank, and a member of the Gold and Silver Commission appointed by the government. In recent years, he had also been devoting himself to social work, donating to universities amongst other things. Does that sound like someone who would shake hands with Spellbound to you? He sounds the model nobleman to me. Ever since his father established the company, others in the area have gone bankrupt one after the next. Some cases were due to simple financial difficulties, but others had key executives go missing, or even murdered in muggings.
Holmes folded the note and returned it to the Black Knight's hollow.
And so you suspect he may have been involved with Spellbound? I'll investigate the area around the banks under the Baron's jurisdiction. As for you, Watson, I'm to investigate the Baron's mansion. You can't very well do it under police watch, can you? You have my thanks. I have to say, for someone who's been given an incredible lead, you're looking far too glum. That's just your imagination. I'm thrilled. Are you? Then I want to ask you something. You sure you're satisfied with how it's been handled? With Emily? I think putting so much distance between you two without explanation will only hurt her, really. I chose the best way I could ensure her protection. That is all. Without considering her heart, what if the news has left her sobbing? I wonder how someone so bright can be so beef-headed sometimes. I really do. Must I sit here and bear being called an idiot by you? You're afraid, aren't you? About if you can protect her or not. I've never seen your confidence so shaken before. A man needs courage and then some to look after a woman properly. You make it sound so simple. Do you have any idea how difficult it was for me to make this decision? How could I know? The harder a situation is on you, the harder you work to push everyone away so you can solve it yourself. It's always been that way. How do you think it makes me feel to watch you suffer in silence? To notice how you never turn to me when you need someone most? For God's sake, Holmes! Watson, Don't do something that would just make her cry, Holmes! It's getting harder for me to watch the two of you, you know?
Poor Watson. Frustrated as he was, Watson still gave Holmes a light, encouraging pat to the shoulder before retiring. Perhaps it worked, perhaps it did not. Whatever the answer, Holmes merely stayed in place to further contemplate his misfortunes.
So I lack confidence, do I? There we have it. You truly do see through everything. Well, well. Baron Swaling must be right bang up to the elephant if his mansion is any indication. And he owns all the land here too, does he?
Right bang up to the elephant, yep. Beyond magnificent gates worth more than most make in a year was a mansion worth more than what most would see in their lifetime. All were tied together by a lovely English garden.
How am I to go about this? I can't strut through the entrance and ask if he's involved with Spellbound. Wait, could that be him?
He spotted a man moving at a brisk pace, his servants seemingly marching with the unified stiffness of soldiers behind their general. His wealth was flaunted in 3 distinct parts: a neatly trimmed mustache, a tidy black suit, and a glistening black walking stick that rapped the ground to its own rhythm.
They sure look to be in a rush. Oh, he's boarding a carriage. What has them running off in such a hurry? Only one way to find out, I suppose.
The next morning at Holmes and Watson's Baker Street flat proved eventful. Holmes, you've got a letter!
Oh. Thank you, Miss Hudson.
Is Watson still not back?
He's not, but there's no need to worry. He'll be back soon.
But we haven't heard a peep since he left.
Is that so unusual? He's gone out for 2 or 3 days at a time on a number of occasions, hasn't he? Now, if you don't mind, the letter.
Right. Here it is. Holmes's hand was impatiently hanging in the air for something to be placed upon it, and Hudson obliged. The envelope itself was white and plain. There was nothing to indicate its sender.
How odd that it has only my name on it.
A man dressed in black handed it to me right outside. As soon as I accepted, he vanished without another word. Holmes unsealed the envelope, removed the letter, and began to read.
It says...
He had opened his mouth as if to share with Hudson its contents, but with alarmingly quick movement he instead crumpled the letter brutally with his right hand.
Damn it all!
What is it? What does it say? And something's fallen out of the envelope, too. Did you see it?
What?
First anger, then dread. What accompanied the letter drained all color from Holmes's face.
That fool! He must have looked too far into Baron Swaling!
Holmes muttered his botherations under his breath, only just so Hudson could happen to hear, storming about the flat and gathering his things, which were never in their proper place, erratically in preparation to leave. Wait, Holmes! Where are you going? Please, give me a moment! Whatever that letter said, it was something terrible, wasn't it? Then you ought to tell
I will tell no one, Miss Hudson. And you're not to tell anyone either. Not her, not anyone!
Her? Emily? Holmes did not answer, for he had already exited the flat. Please, Holmes, wait!